Well, good to see you. My name is Anna Krueger. I'm curious, how many of you, this is our first webinar together? Let me know in the chat box. I would love to know who our new friends are here. And then also, I want to make a quick disclaimer. I live in the Carolinas, which was impacted by Hurricane Helene. Can you believe I still do not have internet? So otherwise, the house, everything is fine, but my area is still without internet. So just bear with me. I hope it works strong today. I'm on a good, strong hotspot. So let's go ahead and jump into today. Today, we're going to talk through 3 tips to earn agency signature, a very hot topic. And I would get something to take notes with. We are going to move pretty quickly. And they say you remember 8% of what you hear and you forget the other 92%, which is a little depressing as a public speaker for a job. So I encourage you take notes so you can remember the topics from today. This is going to help you earn agency signature. Using what I teach today, my team typically earned 90%. 90%, that's a high percentage. 90% of signatures for our seller clients, and 95% of our buyer clients hired us using the techniques I'm going to give you today. So this will help you. I really encourage you to take notes. Then we're going to go over some new program information. There's a new program coming in less than 4 weeks, and then we'll open it up for Q&A. Are y'all ready? All right, well, let's jump in. So tip number one to earning agency signature is quality pre-screening. Let me explain what I mean by pre-screening, and then I want to hear from you. Why do you think that matters? So I want to have a discussion around that, and then we'll move on to tip number 2. So quality pre-screening, what I mean by that is basically asking them about financials, asking them about motivation, things of that nature. Why do you think, and a guess is fine if you're not sure, why do you think pre-screening is an important factor in having them sign with you? So when they meet with you, why would asking them financial questions, motivation questions, all that, why would that affect whether or not they hire you?
You want to know if it's going to be a good fit for you. And you don't want people wasting your time, which happens a lot as a real estate agent. You'll get people who have interest, but it's not immediately actionable.
Yes, yeah, that's definitely a factor. So we want to make sure we're setting appointments with people that make sense to set appointments with, right? So if they're not qualified, they might love us and we might love them and they might want to move forward, but we really can't move forward if they're not qualified, if they're not in a place that they're ready. Why else do you think it matters? Rita said in the chat box, it'll let you know how serious they are. Yep. So let me show you real quick what I mean when I say pre-screening. What are some of those questions that we would be asking? If you want to jot these down. But some key things to talk about when you're pre-screening someone is their motivation. So I believe that takes 3 minutes. I do teach how to dig into motivation in other webinars. That's not the main topic for today, but know that usually takes about 3 minutes. And when we're talking about digging for motivation, what we're looking for is the emotional why. So why is this person considering packing up their house and moving across town, right? Like, why are they willing to do that? The second thing that we're really going to be looking for is the description of the home that they're buying or the home that they're selling. So let's say I'm talking to Lindsay and Lindsay is buying a home. I'm going to take some time and ask her, describe the layout of the home you're looking for. How many bedrooms, bathrooms, what's the yard? What do you desire for the yard? Things like that. Then I'm going to ask about financials. Now, if they're a seller, I'll ask about how much do they owe on their home? Are you current on payments? What do you think your home is worth? Things of that nature. And if they are a buyer, I'm going to ask them, how do they plan to pay for the home? Somehow we have scribbles on the screen. Do you all see that? I have no idea how that's happening. Rodrigo, maybe you can help me out. But we're going to ask about the home they want to buy. So how do they plan to pay for the home, cash or loan? Can I give you a little pro tip? I used to live in the DC area where people have quite a bit of money up in the DC area. And I noticed when I asked, I just assumed most people would use a loan. So when I asked, have you already gotten pre-qualified with a lender? I was offending people. Now, I'm also like, don't get so offended because you're wealthy, okay? Like, all right, so you're not going to use a loan. You don't have to be offended that I asked you about a loan. But it was also good feedback for me of I'm making an assumption here. So I learned to change my question first. How do you plan to pay for the home? And if they said cash, I just bypassed all of those loan questions. And depending where you live, you may have a lot of cash buyers. And then, of course, if they say loan, I like to say, yeah, me too. I would use a loan too, just to normalize that. And that can make them feel really good in that moment. So, are you paying cash or loan? You're also going to want to ask in pre screening who are all the decision makers? So, who all do you believe will be making this decision with you? That's important because it's not just who's going to be signing paperwork. For example, when I bought my home, I'm single. I had a guy from my church who was my financial advisor. I wanted him in the appointment with me. Now, he wasn't technically a decision maker, but I considered him a decision maker. So, asking questions like who are all of the decision makers and emphasizing not just who's signing paperwork, but who would be somebody that you want to make this decision with you. And then a big one, and I would write number 5 down and put a star by it, circle it, whatever you want. What are your expectations from a realtor? Just what are you expecting? Now, you know what's funny? What they usually say are things like someone who can sell my house, someone who will talk to me. I mean, that's kind of standard, right? If you've ever asked this question, you know what I'm talking about. So I like to tease them because if you can get people laughing, you're usually in good rapport. So if I'm asking Margaret, what are you looking for in a realtor? And Margaret says, well, someone who will communicate, someone who can sell my home, a good negotiator. I usually like to say, Margaret, you're so unreasonable. You just want me to do my job? And they usually laugh. Margaret just laughed and you smiled at me. It's a good sign. Okay. But what I like to do to take it further, and this will help you with signature, is when she says, communicate with me, what would be a good follow-up question to that?
What's your preferred way to communicate
What's your preferred way?
and how
But
often?
and how often? There you go. Because preferred way might be email, phone. We need to know that. Very important. Text. The bigger thing is how often. Or you could even say, what does good communication look like to you? And what's funny is you'll have some people who say once a week, I don't really want to talk all the time. I just want to know the important stuff. And then you'll have people that want daily updates. What I'm doing though, by asking these questions in the pre screening, so this is on the phone before I have set the appointment. What I'm doing is I'm setting myself up to have a quality appointment because now I know going into my meeting with Margaret, yes, I'm going to cover the normal things that I cover. There's certain things I must cover. But for Margaret, I'm going to really make sure I emphasize my communication plan. And I'm going to make sure that I communicate because she told me good communication is important to her when I said, what are your expectations from a realtor? So with pre-screening, typically, I'm such a nerd to know this. I track everything. Typically, this takes about 7 to 10 minutes. Why am I telling you that? Well, this is part of what will help you get signature. Um, Let me give you an example. Okay. Years ago, I was shopping for insurance. My accountant referred 3 insurance agents to me. So honestly, any 3 was fine. I was kind of in the mode of whoever gets back to me first wins because I just want to get this done. Anybody else like that? I was just kind of I just want to wrap this up. Well, I actually talked to the first 2 agents of the 3. And those 2 agents said, I will send you a form to fill out. And once you fill that out, then we'll hop back on the phone. I didn't really think too much of it because they both did it. So I just figured this must be standard protocol. I didn't really have a point of reference. The 3rd agent, his name is Zach. I'm trying to recruit him to real estate because he's really good. The third agent spent probably 20 to 30 minutes on the phone with me. Now, guys, hear this. This is so applicable to what we do. 2 people said, I'll send you a questionnaire. The third agent spent 20 to 30 minutes on the phone with me. He asked me a lot of open-ended questions about my goals for why I wanted insurance, what kind of coverage I felt that I needed, what would help me sleep well at night, knowing that I'm covered. And I remember thinking, why didn't the other 2 agents ask me all these questions? Now, before I bumped into the really good agent, the other 2, I didn't really think much of it. But once I encountered amazing, the other 2 seemed subpar. Do y'all catch what I'm saying here? And what I found is when I pre-qualify or pre-screen people, sometimes they will say, why didn't the other agents, excuse me, why didn't the other agents ask me these questions? And they'll vocalize it. Now, a lot of people think it and they don't say it out loud, but it reminds me I'm standing out because their past experiences weren't as good as this one. The other thing too is I remember with the third agent, I thought to myself, I don't care if what he offers me is more expensive because he's asking me good questions. I have confidence that whatever he offers me is the right thing. Let me say that again. Because he's asking me questions, whatever he's offering me is the right thing. And I had already decided I didn't care if he cost more. That was the guy I was going to work with. Isn't that so applicable to what we do, right? Now, the last thing I'll say about pre-screening, and then we'll go on to tip number 2, is my former leader, I come from a team. He used to drive me nuts. If I set an appointment for him and I did not have every question filled out on our pre-screening sheet, he'd give it back to me. And he would say, I'm not going on this appointment. And I would sometimes say, I have 19 out of 20 questions. I don't understand why you're so strict on this. And he was so wise. He said, there's some reason you didn't get that last question or one of the 20. So is it because they were rushing you off the phone? Is it because they refused to answer you? Like, what was happening? And he said, I view that as a high risk no-show. So part of it was who was willing to stay on the phone with me long enough to fill out all of those questions. Now, a quality conversation from start to finish is usually about 12 minutes. Okay. So it's not like we're asking them for an hour of their time on the phone. It's usually about 12 minutes, about 3 minutes to get motivation, 7 to 10-ish to get that whole pre-screening taken care of, and then about 1 to 2 minutes to set the appointment. So we're just looking at about 12 minutes. But if I'm talking to Lacey and Lacey's not willing to stay on the phone with me for 12 minutes, that's actually not a great sign that she would show up for the appointment, right? So that is another reason. So there's multiple reasons that pre-screening matters. Multiple reasons. Yeah, Rita says in the chat box, the same experience with car salespeople. Yeah. All right, so that's tip number 1. Make sure that you're pre-screening them. So let's go on to tip number 2. Tip number 2, when you're setting the appointment, set the expectation of the signature. So I'm going to give you all a dialogue. This is the dialogue specifically that we used to get, again, 90% of sellers to hire us, 95% of buyers to hire us. Now, there are a lot of factors, right? We pre-screened them. It wasn't only this dialogue, but this dialogue is what we see make a huge difference. Let me tell you one more thing to inspire you to write it down. I was coaching a team not too long ago, and they had 40% of their appointments showing up. Okay. Now, today we're talking signature. We're not talking showing up, but can we all agree if they don't show up, they can't sign a signature? So using the dialogue I'm about to give you, they went from a 40% show up ratio to an 80% show up ratio in 2 weeks. Imagine the impact of that on your business to have double the appointments you're setting actually show up. So this will help you not only.
Could you show that dialogue again? I didn't see
I'm
any of
about to
this.
put it up. I haven't shared it yet. I'm about to put it on the screen. I haven't shared it yet. And so this will help you have more appointments show up, and this will have you help them sign. So let me go ahead and give it to you so you can write it down. I encourage you to write it down versus a picture because you will remember it better. So I have gotten their motivation. I have pre-screened them. And through that process, I've determined this person is actually good to go. I mean, they're ready. So what I'm going to say is your next step is to meet with me. Or if you're setting for someone else, I might say your next step is to meet with Amy and do 3 things. By the way, I'm not asking them, do you want to meet? Okay. I'm coming from the consultant perspective. I've heard your story. The next step is to do this. So your next step is to meet with me and do 3 things. Number 1, we're going to go back over your motivation and pricing. Number 1, go back over motivation and pricing. Now, I might also add in there, you know, hey, Margaret, we're going to go back over your motivation and pricing. I know we just talked about it on the phone, but I want to make sure in person there's nothing else that came to mind. You could do that. So we're going to go back over your motivation and pricing. Number 2, we're going to interview each other to make sure we're a mutually good fit. What's powerful about that is a lot of people are used to the agent that's, I need your business. I need your business. I need you. I need you. I need you. And when we say we're going to interview each other, it levels the playing field. And I find it's almost like it makes them sit up a little bit taller. Okay. Because they want you to accept them. And instead of it being this mindset of, I need business, so whatever I got to do to get you, you know, it's more of a level playing field, and they do show up differently. You can see it when you say this in person, you can see it. So number 2, we're going to interview each other to make sure a good fit. Now, again, I like to make people laugh. So sometimes I'll throw in there, hey, listen, Lacey, if you meet with me and you think I'm crazy, please don't hire me. But I think we're going to get along great. And again, a lot of you on screen are smiling at me. That's what we want with the client, right? So I think we're going to get along great, but don't hire me if you think I'm crazy. All right. So number 2, we're going to interview each other, make sure a mutually good fit. And here's the big one right here. Put a star by it. And then number 3, if everything looks good, we will sign paperwork. And you're going to say it with a downswing like that. A downswing is high to low. And then number 3, if everything looks good, we will sign paperwork to activate the next step. Any questions? Notice there was no pause. It's not. And then number 3, if everything looks good, we'll sign paperwork to activate the next step. Any questions? The way you come across with confidence, that'll boost their desire to hire you. Because remember, they're not hiring you to be their best friend. They're hiring you to negotiate what is likely one of their largest financial assets. So you coming across in a confident manner, a confident tone is going to go a long way in causing them to want to hire you. So here's what it sounds like all together. And notice the tonality. You will get a recording of this. You can listen to it again, but here's the tonality of how to deliver this well from the top. All right, Amy, your next step is to meet with me and do 3 things. Number 1, we're going to go back over your motivation and pricing, make sure we're on the same page. Number 2, we'll interview each other, make sure we're a good fit. If you don't like me, please don't hire me, but I think we'll get along great. And then number 3, if everything looks good, we will sign paperwork to activate the next step. Any questions? Okay, great. Let's pick a time. Now, here's the deal. If they have questions, just, okay, great. Let me write that down. We'll talk about that in person. I'm going to stop sharing screen because I want you to see my face right now. We are not getting signature on the phone. That's not what we're trying to do here. I'm simply setting expectation that there might be signatures happening in person. It's almost like I'm poking the bear a little bit. And the people that are confident with us and they feel good, you'll be surprised how many people say, sounds great, because you're just taking that consulting perspective. But some of them will say things like, oh, I don't sign paperwork out of the gate. What do you mean paperwork? In which case I'll say it's basically saying that we agree to work together. I'll show you more in person. That's actually why we're getting together. But what I'm getting at here is don't feel like if they have questions that you have to solve that on the phone. Remember, a good conversion on the phone is about 5%. In person, it jumps up to 90. So once they see you in person, it's a lot easier to overcome objections. But what I'm wanting to do here is prepare you for what might come up. So I'd rather you figure out what questions they have before the appointment so you can practice than in the appointment. So you're going to set this up before the appointment that there might be signature. And then this is basically the same. You don't need to write this down. But notice this screen said setting the appointment to sign. This one says starting the appointment to sign. So think of it like a baton handoff. So I set the appointment, we hang up. Now the appointment's happening and I go to shake Amy's hand and I say, hey, Amy, I'm so excited to meet with you today and help you get that bigger house by the beach. Today, we're going to do 3 things. Number 1, go back over your motivation and price. Number 2, interview each other, make sure we get along and everything looks good. And then number 3, if everything looks good, we will sign paperwork to activate the next step. Any questions? Okay, great. Let's get started. And just that confidence alone will get you signature. Okay. All right. The last thing, and then I'll tell you where to find more training like this. We actually have a whole new program launching, which I'm really excited about. All right. The last thing is know your value and show your value tied to the client. What I mean by that is you don't have to tell everything amazing about yourself. Just say the things that they talked about. So like when I was using Margaret as an example, and I said if she told me communication was really important to her, that would be the main value I would talk about. Now I'll talk about other things, right? Like marketing and things that I really have to talk about, but I'm going to really emphasize the things that she talked about. So part of what's going to help you build value is not giving away too much. So what happens is sometimes we give away too much value before they've committed to us. So let's say I'm talking to Niels and Niels says, can you, I want to sell my house. Do you have any contractors that you recommend? I got to get my house ready. What I would say is absolutely, I have contractors. That's the kind of thing I provide for people we're working with. And I'll give that to you once we decide to work together. And you know what they usually say? Okay, great. But if you give away too much, it negates the reason to show up and actually work with you. So what I want you to think about is what do customers get, the general public, and then what do clients get? And that's really up to you to decide. There's not really a right or wrong answer here. So what I encourage you to do outside of this webinar is sit down, get a whiteboard, get a piece of paper. If you're on a team, bring the team together and just mastermind real quick. What are things that general customers get? What are things you only get if you're a client? For me, general customers get a general search. So let's say I'm talking to Lacey and Lacey wants to buy a house and she says, can you send me some houses? I would tell her, absolutely. What you'll get is every 3-bedroom, 2-bath house that fits your basic description. But Lacey, once we meet and agree to work together, that's when we get the real refined search. So that's when we can put down what zip code you want to be in, hardwood floors with a pool. So just know before we meet, it'll be a little more generic. There'll be a little more to sift through. And that's part of why meeting with me will help. We'll narrow it down for you in that meeting. I have never, and I know people say don't use the superlatives, always or nevers. I'm telling you, I have never had anyone give pushback on that. Not one time. And I've been doing this since 2014. They are fine with it. So because you're adding value. So that's just one example. So I encourage you to think through, what do clients get? What do customers get? And some phrasing you can use is if they ask you for something you're not ready to provide just yet, you can say, absolutely. Once we meet and agree to work together, I'm happy to provide that for you. Okay. You could also say that's exactly why we're getting together. So, hey, I want a really specific search. I want hardwood floors with a pool. Hey, that's actually exactly why we're getting together, Niels. We'll set that up for you when we're in person. Or again, if they're asking for maybe a contractor contact info. Absolutely, Amy, that's the kind of thing we provide for all of our clients. We'll talk about that when we get together. Which if we go back real quick to here, notice how it says, and then number 3, we will sign paperwork to activate the next step. Sometimes I'll add in there to activate the next step and give you access to our contractor list, if that was something they asked for. So yes, Valerie, when we get together, we'll sign paperwork to activate the next step. And that's when I'll put you on that really specific search. So you can tighten that up even a little bit more. What do you guys think of this so far? Feel like it will help you get some signatures? I'm telling you, this stuff really works and it's not complicated. A lot of it is saying it with confidence and really knowing what to say.
Can you
So what I
show
want to
us
do now,
slide 3 one more time, real quick?
I will in just a moment. We're getting close to time, so I'll go back, but let me make sure I share this last thing before we're out of time, and then I'll go back to that slide. I want to let you know there's a place to get a lot more information like this, and it's starting on November 13th, which crazy enough, that's only less than 4 weeks away. I can't believe it's that not far away. So some of you have heard of mega lead conversion. Mega lead conversion used to look like something, and we're ending that program actually now. And there is a new version of mega lead conversion starting in November. So on the left-hand side, you can see what mega lead conversion used to be. Okay, 3 hours of training. We recorded everything, and it was $199 per month. I felt burdened because of the market, because of client feedback, and really just wanting to provide more value to actually double the content, not charge anything more. But you are now getting 6 hours of content a month. So instead of 3, it's jumped up to 6 hours of content. What that looks like is it's 3 trainings a month, just like this. It's live. They're an hour long. So instead of 30 minutes, it's an hour. And I see the questions in the chat box. I'll get to you in just a minute. It's 3 trainings a month and we do record them. So if your schedule doesn't allow, no problem at all. Everything can be posted on demand. I love when you join live because I like to get to know you. But if you need to watch the replays, that's totally fine. The things that we're adding, so this is all new. There are 2 extra help calls per month. So have you ever just wished that you could mastermind with a coach and other people in the industry and just talk shop and get ideas? That's what those are for. So there are 2 extra help calls a month, and it's really what you want to talk about. And then there's 1 expert interview a month. We've never done that before. So I'll be interviewing different industry experts, and I'll be posting that online on demand in the client portal. In addition, okay, so in addition to all of those new elements, I also have felt before like, man, everybody's asking me how to overcome a certain objection. And that class isn't for another 8 weeks. So, ugh. So what I've decided to do is we're going to start every month releasing on-demand videos that are specific to the market. So for example, in November, once you are registered and the class is live, there will be on-demand videos on holiday objections, how to deal with things like that. So there'll be market specific and seasonality specific, okay? It's $197 a month, or if you want to pay upfront for the whole program, you can save 10%. And everything, whether it's just on demand out of the gate or it's a live class, it will be available on demand if your schedule doesn't work, okay? So that'll start on November the 13th. It's less than 4 weeks away, which is crazy. And you can go to megaleadconversion.com and you'll see more of those details. So on there, we tell you what's taught which week. There's a much bigger breakdown. So megaleadconversion.com is where you can get more like that. Jackie or Jacqueline, I called you Jackie. I don't know if you prefer Jackie or Jacqueline. Jacqueline said, can our VA also attend with us? Yes, if you are on the same team, you can have 2 people per registration. 2 people per registration. So for example, if you have 4 team members, that would be 2 signups, not 4. Okay. If there's 2 of you that you want to join, that's 1 signup. So you can have 2 people per 1 signup. Someone asked, do we get a discount if we've taken the class before? Yes, because you're alumni. So email me and I'll tell you how to do that. And if you've never taken it, the way to get a discount would be just pay up front and you get that 10% off. Okay. The program, Adelisa, great question. The program is 6 months long, 6 months long. And then it's really 8 months of access. So from the very last class, we give you 2 extra months to watch videos in case you missed anything. Oh, Lisa, thank you for that. She said the original was excellent. My agent role has changed, so planning to go through 2.0. Yay! That's awesome. Oh, and I just answered your question. I hadn't even read it yet. Yeah. Let me tell you when it is too, Rodrigo, maybe you know off the top of your head. And can you put the link to class in the chat box, Rodrigo? The class is going to be, let me tell you real quick. You'd think I know the schedule. Okay, it's going to be starting on Wednesday the 13th. The live classes will be 3:30 to 4:30 Eastern on Wednesdays. And then twice a month, we'll have on Tuesday that extra help call twice a month, and that'll also be 3:30 to 4:30 Eastern. Okay. Yeah, megaleadconversion.com. And then, yeah, 60 days after the last session is you can watch. So it's really 8 months of access for a 6-month program. Good. What other questions do you guys have about the program? I think it's a lot of fun. You saw little pieces of it today. Everything I taught you today comes from the program. You just got it in a very shortened version. Whereas in the class, we go a lot deeper because we have more time. Good. Any other questions? Now, someone had asked me about a slide you wanted to see. Oh, go ahead.
And I have a question. This is Jacqueline.
Hi.
As far as, you know, with the changes of everything and the buyer's broker agreements and, you know, them having to sign and things like that,
Yeah.
are you going to go over scripts or teach us what to say if we get that, I don't know, that question up front over the phone?
Yeah, so we'll talk in the program about how to deal with objections, which that really is what that is. It's objection. But I will tell you now, it's all about building your value. If they see the value that you have to bring, signing with you will not be an issue. So when they understand things like, you got to be able to share with them things like your statistics. So things like list price to sales price ratio. I won a multiple offer against 6 people yesterday. I mean, there's a lot to that. And we do talk about this in class, how to build your value. But yeah, it's really just an objection. I wouldn't categorize that as like a special objection. It's just an objection. And I'm giving you a preview now, but it's solved by showing your value. That's how you solve that one. They just have to see your value.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, and then I see the question, will you send slides? We don't send slides. They are copyrighted, but you will get a recording of this in your email probably within the next 24 hours. Once we get it back from Zoom, we'll send it out to you. So megaleadconversion.com. And yeah, Lisa, they're once a week on Wednesdays. Yeah. What we do is we meet 3 Wednesdays a month live. And then that one, like the 4th week, that's when I'll release the expert interview where you can watch it on your own time. And then we have our 2 extra help calls. Plus on-demand content. Okay. Adelise, I see you have questions. Before we move on, any other questions about the program? Who will I see in class? I'm curious. I'm excited. It feels, have you ever felt like you needed to revamp something and then you did and you're really excited to offer it out? Have you ever done that with one of your programs as a real estate agent? That's how I feel. Like I'm really excited. I feel really good about this program. I felt good about the old program, but it needed a revamping. And I feel really proud and excited about what's coming. Awesome. So Jacqueline and Lisa, I'll see you there. Perfect.
Yeah, I was in your class a few years ago too, and I'm excited. I think I'll be joining the new one.
Awesome. Yeah, and if you're alumni, just shoot me a message and I'll give you a code. Valerie, does the program cover any LG info? What do you mean LG? I feel like as soon as you tell me, I'll be like, yeah, why did I not know that? Oh, yeah, the whole program is lead gen. Lead generation, that's the whole focus. The focus is how to help you become very good at converting leads to appointments and setting them up to sign. Yeah. Also, to the point
how to find them.
at your budget, real quick, Rhonda, to the point of thinking about budget, remember you can have 2 people per registration if you're within the same team. So maybe find someone who wants to take this with you and split the cost. That would be an idea. Somebody had a question. What was it? I think you said you had a question.
So I had 2. They're really quick. With pre-screening the clients, sometimes they won't give me all the info. I remember you said that your broker needed you to get all of it.
Yeah.
So, and they'll say like, can I just see the homes or let me just talk to the agent? What would you recommend in that case? My broker usually says I'll reel them in or.
Yeah, I mean, part of that is talking with the team on the ground to see how they want you to handle it. I hate to say it, it's not something I can answer in 2 minutes, but what that really is an objection. When they're objecting to answer your pre-screening questions, they're not understanding the value of the pre-screening questions. So sometimes we have to tell them, hey, the reason I'm asking you these questions is XYZ. And we go way into that in the class.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
My other one was, you had said for us to ask the clients if they have questions for the agent to write them down. My broker usually says to have them write down all the questions, save them and or send them over. Do you recommend either type of way or?
I recommend, I want to know what they are so I can prepare for them.
Okay.
So it's the analogy I'll give you. My dad's a retired Washington, D.C. police. And the dispatcher would gather as much information as they could. And I remember going with my dad for a ride along one time, and we were driving to a domestic violence situation. And I felt calmer as we drove because as we drove, the dispatcher was feeding him additional details. So by the time my dad got to the door, he knew what he was walking into. And that gave him a better chance for a good result. If he walked in blind, that could have gone very differently, right? It's the same thing. So I don't know why you wouldn't want to know what their questions are. Like the whole point of pre-screening, asking questions on the phone is so that when we meet, I'm well prepared. So to me, I don't know why you wouldn't want to know what their questions are. Now you don't have to answer them. You don't have to answer them, but you can just say, if you're the client at Elisa, I might just say, hey, let me get your questions. We'll talk about them in person, but I want to make sure I'm fully prepared. I want to make good use of your time. What questions do you have? Got it. Got it. Got it. Okay, great. We'll make sure we cover that when we get together. Or so and so will cover that when you get together. Yeah. All right. We are well over time. Rodrigo's very gracious. He's our host, and I don't want to keep him any longer. But megaleadconversion.com. It starts on the 13th. Double the content of what it was before. It's actually more than that when you add in the on-demand stuff. So quite a lot of content for you. And I'm excited about it. I think it's going to be awesome. And I'd love to see you there. Okay. So again, if you're alumni, we actually emailed you yesterday, Tuesday. We emailed all alumni. So if you didn't see it, check your spam. And if you still didn't see it, just email me, Anna@sparkingprogress.com. Because I do have a code for you since you're alumni. All right, guys. Well, thanks for being here. I will see you soon. Oh, yeah, that's probably why I added Lisa. Just shoot me an email. Cool. All right, guys. I'll see you hopefully on the 13th. Have a great rest of your day.